Can you hear me now? Oh, jeez. So I've been speaking for the past few minutes without audio, but I think you should be able to hear me now. Jesus. Yeah, I've been speaking for the past few minutes without audio. Okay. That sounds so bad. Sounds so bad. So basically, what I've been saying earlier is that for those who are just joining the stream for the first time, you're welcome, right? Thanks for joining. Today I just want to quickly, I mean, it's pretty much late already, I know, but I want to just quickly talk about these four things or five things as fast as I can. And I was saying that hopefully I get the opportunity to stream tomorrow, which is Saturday, right? I can talk about Next.js tomorrow. So hopefully I get a chance to talk about Next.js tomorrow. Um, so for those who have been following my Next.js episodes and stuff, I've been building something, right? So we built like registration, sign up, flow, and all these other flows into what we've been trying to build. So I think majorly it's just time for us to clean everything up and just look at the final output, and then we just go ahead and build something different now. So I think we can get our hands dirty on maybe an e-commerce project, maybe, but I don't know the project I'm going to be working on soon. But at least I should be able to build something with Next.js, and we could just try to explore all the possible beautiful things that Next.js have for us. So today I'm just going to talk about arrays, right? I mean, this is a very interesting topic in JavaScript, and I just want to. I mean, if you're just new to if you're new to if you're new to what's it called now, if you're new to JavaScript entirely, right, you know that most of the time there are ways to, I think there are ways to store data. Basically arrays are ways to store data, right? um so one of the provisions that I think brings to the table is that array as a way to gives you some methods to explore the data that you're able to store, right? So I think that's one of the interesting and beautiful things about array. And so let's just get started. I probably will stay within the Edge browser today. I'm not sure, but and I also usually have I have I think I should have Node here. NVM use 22, and I also have Dino here, right? So I like to just have all of them there. So in case I'm not sure whether I will need to use VS Code, but if there's a need for me to use VS Code, we can always we can always bring VS Code up, right? Just a plain window of VS Code we can bring something, we can do something with a plain windows of VS Code, right? So arrays. Uh, this is file and new window. So we can always do something with this window here. Lots of what do I call it now? Lots of screens to write JavaScript. I mean, the reason why I keep all of these things, maybe Coca, Dino, right, is just to get flexible and to write the code in different platforms. All right. So if you're just new to this as well, Coca is a VS Code extension that uses Node.js installed on your computer to allow us to run um, to allow us to run Node.js. I wish we can set this. I wish we can configure it more to use something like Dino and some other stuff. I think my internet is. Can you guys still hear me well and clear? I'm not sure whether my internet is still stable, but so let's just quickly jump into most of the stuff we have. Okay, so when you talk about arrays, how do you create an array? How do you create an array in JavaScript? How do we create an array in JavaScript? How do you even clear this thing again? Bad. Most of the time, I usually want to just clear all of these things. Scroll to the top. Let's see. Right. So anytime we see square brackets, right, that signifies, something related to array, right? Square bracket, right? And I mean, there are other ways, right? But basically, when you want to create the most basic literal version of an array, right, we can create an array just like this. And definitely we cannot use type of, right? We all know that we cannot use type of on array, right? Because the type of array gives us object, right? So how do we know if something is an array, right? The only provision in JavaScript, right, is something we call array is array, right? There is a particular word, a particular is it property now, or I think a method, but it's supposed to be a static method on array that allow us to confirm if that array created is what is it now, whether it is, why is Dino typing, why is it Dino types that this VS Code is using, but that's another case for another day. I'll fix that. So right now you can see that what we can see if whatever we have created is an array. So what can array store? Array can store what multiple things, right? You can decide to store maybe strings like this, right? Or we can decide to store numbers, right? We can decide to store numbers, right? And it's also very powerful in the sense that you can decide to store mix of data types, right? So you can have true, comma, one, right, and string, right, and you can just have them like that. Array is flexible to what, but most of the time it is just very good to keep the array in what, making sure that all the elements in the array have what the same data type right there. So that is basically how to get around an array, right? If you want other ways to create an array, we can have, like, you can use the array constructor, right, to create something which creates what, five what, empty undefined array, and you can fill it, right, with what, maybe fill all of them with zero, or fill all of them with what, zero, right? So that is a basic way to what, also create an array. And there are other very interesting ways to create array, just other very interesting ways, but these are just few ones that we can do. Obviously, when we pick also from what we did in the last episode of the stream, where we have object dot keys, you also can use the object dot keys to switch an object into an array, or you use object dot what values, right, or you use object dot entries, right, to just play around, right, with an array, just from an object to get an array. So basically that is major thing about what an array does and what is capable of doing. And another interesting thing with arrays that we now have a way to I mean, you can also use the constructor approach. For those who don't know, right, you can use a constructor approach, which constructor approach also creates something similar to what we have here, right? It also works right there. Okay. And how do we access the element inside of an array? right? How do we access the elements inside of an array? So you can use what we can, let's say we have an array of 1 to 5, right? To access the first element there, we can do ARR of what, square bracket of what, 0, right, to get the first thing, or you have this to get the second thing. And if we want to get the last one, right, we could do what, ARR square bracket of what, the total length. And the total length is stored in a property called what, array dot length, right? And if you do length minus 1, right, you get your final value. Why are we doing this now? The major thing is that arrays are indexed, right? They are zero indexed. So when we say array are zero indexed, what we're saying is that the major thing with array is that it's the first value, right? The first value has what is accessed with what, the index of what, 0. The first value is accessed with the index of 0, right? And like that, like that, like that. The second is what, with 1 and down. So now it means that the length, it will be what, the length minus 1, which is going to give us what, the last thing, right? So this is 0, this is 1, this is 2, this is 3, and this is what, 4, right there. So that way. So what other things do we have regarding array? What other interesting things do we have with arrays? So here, array also has this new approach where we can also do array at something, right? That's like the first interesting thing I'm talking about today. So array at what? Array at 0. How many of us know that at exists, right? At exists. What does heart do? So heart tells us where it returns the item, right, located at a particular index. All right. So when you say give me the item at what, 0, right? Or give me the item at what? At 1, or give me the last one, which is what? ARR, right? Dot what? Heart, right? And I think we can pass minus 1. So this is another very interesting thing. So when you pass minus 1 here, what are we trying to do? Minus 1 is automatically saying start the counting from like the back, right? Start the counting from the back. So it is now easy for you to get the last element what inside of an array. So you don't necessarily have to use the length before. Before now, we couldn't get the last item without using maybe the array dot length minus 1. But now we have this beautiful trick here that we could use, right, to get the values that is inside of what, of an array, right there. All right. So what other things do we have with array? Anybody, what other thing do you know about arrays before we jump into the methods? What other thing do you know about arrays before we jump into the methods? What other thing do you know that I've not talked about? Do you know about array that I have not talked about? Anybody? Anybody in the comments? What other beautiful power do we have with arrays? Right. So those are methods still, right? I've not started talking about them yet. I mean, they're the next thing I want to talk about. But I was just thinking that have we checked everything possible before we jump into the methods, right? Yes. So basically, these are few interesting things that we can do with our array. So if we start looking at ways to add values to an array, so how do we add a value to an array? So for example, now this year we declare them instantly from the beginning. But let's assume we want to fill it with values, right? Right, you want to fill it with values. So we can now say that what, hey, r of what? Maybe something like this, 0 is equals to 1. So assuming you want to fill it manually, right? You want to fill it manually, right, with values right there. I mean, this also is possible, right? And this also works, right? Filling the values manually. Now, to loop through to like how do you get values out of an array, right? If you want to get values out of an array, I mean, the first very basic way is to what? To use like a normal for loop, right? A normal for loop where you can do what? For, right? Let I equals to this. And so thanks to Copilot there, right? You can always get access to all of the members of your array easily, right? With the for loop. So the for loop is always like a very cool way to get all the members of your all the members of your arrays, right? And like I said, I've talked about the property of dot length, which helps us to see what the length of an array is. Yeah, we can put a function inside of an array as well. Yeah, that's possible as well. You can put objects, you can put different mix of data types, right, inside of an array. And so when we start going deeper and looking at the methods, so there are some methods that allow us to what? To put something, right, to put something in or to put something out, right? So we have the push, right? Push, shift, on shift, right? And we have pop and on shift. So these are ways to, so for example, now my array contains of what? 1 to 5. So if I want to add 6 to it, I could just use this based on what Copilot is given to me, right? And that way, now the interesting thing about this array.push is that you need to really understand the way it works. It appends a new element to the end of the array and it returns what? The length. So if I put, and I say, I'm telling this to give me value here. So what it will return to me is the length, right? It's not 6 that is returning to me, okay? So the value that is being returned here is what this particular value called a that is returned here is the length that is being returned, right? The size of the array. So you need to understand again, right? This array.push adds something to the end and it returns what? The length of the array to you, right there. And you can what? You can pass more than one thing, right? You can pass more than one thing, right? You can pass more than one thing, it still does work, right? If you pass more than one thing into array.push. Okay. And if we look at what array.pop, so what does pop do, right? So pop tells us that what my job is to what? Remove what? The last element of an array and return that last thing. So now what's the last thing that we popped into our array? The value 8. So if I want to say what the last thing there, right, I could get the last thing here, and that should what? Give me the value of 8, which is the last thing there. So likewise, we have what? On shift. We have on shift, right, which is array dot on shift, which works in a similar way. If you look at the on shift now, it inserts what? This inserts a new element at the start, which is similar to what? To your what? To your push. Push inserts a new thing, right? And at the end, whereas your what? On shift inserts what? A new thing at the beginning. So this way now we can say what? Just insert a string here and say begin, right? And so if we look at our array, and it will return the length now, right? The total length of the array, which is what? 8 is still the total length. Why is the length 8? Because we have removed something here and we have added something back, right? And the last one, which is what? Shift, right? Shift is a way to get what? When you hover on it again, a way to get the first what? The first thing inside of what? The array. Now, if the array is empty, it returns undefined, right? And the array is not modified. So it can accept, it can either, you can either shift like I think you can shift yeah, you should be able to shift. Can you shift? Yeah, you can shift. So it's just, they are very beautiful methods that we can use to, just to extract out values from our what? Arrays. there, right there. So if we go a little bit more, right, we have some other interesting thing that we can do with array. So we can, again, people don't really like to use the push and pop and shift, right, and all, right. So again, they can come with some performance problems and all, right. But I think it's important to know that push and pop are quite going to be fast, or they are a little bit better compared to the shift and unshift, because they deal with what the last element, whereas the shift and the unshift is upsetting the structure, right. So they can be slow, right there. So that's why people don't really use them, right. And I think sometimes we can, here we have array of this is the maybe the last thing. What's the last thing here that we have? Let's see the values inside of our array. So we have um we have this 1 to 7 thing here, and I can decide to just take this further, right. I can decide to take this further, right, and say ARR square bracket of 1000 equals to maybe large number, large. And so what is this doing now? So if you look at this now, I have created what in between. I have allocated what undefined in between down to what 1000, right, by setting a value to what this year. So, but in between my last item, which is 7, and the 1000th item, right, there is just empty space there, right? So you can also do something like that, but then it has some performance, problem as well. I've talked about loops, I've talked about length, I've talked about the constructor approach, using the constructor approach to create array of things. And also we have multi-dimensional arrays, right? For those of us who are probably coming from like a mathematics background, right? multi-dimensional multi-dimensional array, right? That is array inside of array. So you can see stuff that looks like this, right? The first thing is what an array, and the children inside are also arrays, right? So these are multi-dimensional array. That is, the first item is an array, and I think we can, if we keep it to two values, if we keep it to two values, we can turn it into an object, right? Using object dot from entries, right? So I mean, these are very beautiful tricks that you can really do, right? And you can call it dot to string method on the array as well. You can call it dot to string method on the array as well. And I think you can't compare values of two arrays together, right? You can't compare values of two arrays together, right? So if I want to loop through all these values, right, I'd have to use two loops, right? If I want to loop through a multi-dimensional array, right there. And so briefly, we can then go properly into methods, right? Methods. So under the methods are so we can look at the methods as what? These are just ways of accessing different properties inside of an array. That is, there are some methods that helps us to add something or remove something, right? Which we've talked about, like the push, the pop, the shift, and the unshift. We also have some methods that helps us to iterate through something, just like the for loop helps us to iterate through an array, right? We can use another beautiful method that helps us to iterate through the array, which is what? For each. Array dot what? Array dot for each, right? And the thing with all the array methods, they have a similar structure. I mean, of us know the structure of the what we should be passing. There's the array methods, they expect us to pass something inside of them. What do they expect us to pass? The array method expect us to pass something. What do they expect us to pass? Anybody? Anybody? Array method expect us to pass something. What is the name of that thing that they expect us to pass? Array method expect us to pass something. What is that? What do we call the name of what they expect us to pass? Right? So they expect us to pass something we call what? A callback function, right? And that's from the family of what? Functions when we talked about callback functions. And those callback functions have a structure, a shape that they are expecting. So basically, they have a common structure where if we are using the array methods, right, you should pass what? A call back function. Like if you don't know a callback function, you can probably check some of the first episode of the stream where I talked extensively about functions and their benefit. But they expect when we say functions, callback functions, it expect you to pass a function inside of this place right here, right? And that is the first thing that it expect. However, that function must have parameters, and the shape of that parameter is that what you must pass what values, right? Index, right? And what array, right? So those are the three things that will become the parameter. So if you call the parameters a comma what b comma c, now it means that what a is going to represent what the values, right? And what b will represent the index, right? And what c will represent the entire array in itself, right? So again, we can use any value to accept them, but for the sake of teaching, we can always call this what item, right? Each item, right? Each index, right? Each index, each index, and the array itself, the array, right? And so we can then use it inside of this place to to do different things right there. So this is another very cool way to loop through an array. So again, array.for each does not return anything, right? It just gives us a way to loop through the array. It gives us a way to loop through the array. So imagine this loop here is going to run how many times? 1001 times, right? So that is that with that. Any question regarding that? Any question regarding that? So, I mean, what can you do with here? You can just do something like maybe we can, if it is maybe you can print just anything that requires. For example, now let's say we don't have this large here. Where's the large? Let's assume that we don't have this large here. So if we don't have the large here, we can find the sum total of what? We can find the total of let's say we can declare total here and say total, right? And you can say total, and we can then do what? Total plus what? So you can say total plus this, and eventually outside of this place here, then we can use our total, right? We can use our total. Okay. Is there a string inside of the array? Do we have a string? Do we still have a string inside one of the array? Why is it undefined? Okay, I think I know why. Yeah, because we didn't set it to be 0. All right. So if we set the total to be 0, and then we can keep on adding each new item, right? What we're doing there is what we're adding what each new item. We are adding each new item, right? Adding each new item. And so that is for each. Another one that is very close, or let's say close, similar to this behavior as well, is what we have the ones that are similar to this as well, which is what the search, the methods that allow us to search, right? To search through what arrays, search for an element, right? So it means that when we say search, it means that it is also going to go through the arrays, right? So we have what the index, right, of the index of something. Then we have index of, and last index of. Most persons don't know that we have this last index of. So this here, right, we can say the index of this. But I don't think there's a need to use this index of something anymore though. When you have art, I'm not sure there's a very valid reason to use index of anymore, since we have what last, right? Don't think so. Since we have art does almost the same thing, right? Almost the same thing that thing is doing there. um index index of, okay, so so this would check, um this is going to check the array and it will return the what. Okay, I think they're different things. They're doing different things. Yeah, they're doing different things. So the index of returns is going to look for 3 inside of our array. Like, let's look at our array off the top here. So our array has what? So 3 is here. And what is the index of 3? I mean, the index of 3 is just is 2 right there. So then, okay, okay, I think I get it now. Array dot art now, which is array dot art, can now take what? Can now take the one at what? 2, because array dot art takes index, right? Array dot art is looking for the index and it will return the value. So this will return 3 right there. Okay, there are different things there. And then the last will begin searching from the last, right? It will start the searching from the last. So for example, if you know the value that you're looking for before time, so you can do array last index of what? Maybe 100. We don't have, do we have 100 anymore? I don't think we have 100 anymore. This should be on. So it will return -1 because it cannot find 100. So, but let's say we are looking for 7, right? Right, it returns 7. And we also want to say right, array had 7 there. So yeah, that is basically with what the index of and the last index of. So we also have another very interesting method with what we have, what? Find, right, comma, find index, right? And which other one? We have find last index. I think we have find last index, if I'm correct. So we can check MDN if we have find last index, but I think we should have last index, right? So basically, what does all this method do there here? This method here. So you want to say that array dot find, that is, this is going to help us to search through the array and find something and return whatever it found. So it's going to also accept a function. So it can accept a proper callback function, or it can accept like an arrow function, right? If we know how to use arrow functions, right? Yeah, these are valid, what? Valid thing there. So again, it gives us the same structure. We have almost the same structure, right? It gives us what? Value, right? You can accept you can look for value or item or whatever variable you want to call it. But just know that the first argument of that callback function is value, right? The second is what? Each index, right? Each index. And I think the last one should be what? The array, right? So we can then find when, so if we find something that looks like this, right, that is find value that are what, that are less than what, that are less than 5, I think. Is this great? Is it, sorry, is it greater than 5 that I wrote here? uh I think it should not work though. Let's see. I think and v here. So find return value that is greater than 5. Okay, it returns a value that is greater than 5, right? If we return a value that is less than 5, no, it shouldn't. So I think it's just almost easy to, when you want, and I think this is because of TypeScript here, right? So TypeScript is saying that the less than cannot be applied to type string numbers and numbers. So you want to is it because we did not type this very well? So we want to say that we're looking for a value that is equals to a specific thing, right? A specific thing. And that's what find does. Find is easily used to return the first element that matches a particular thing. So because the idea here is that it will stop the execution of this function when it finds its match, the first thing that matches this, and that's what array.find really does for us. And the same thing, if you, the same code that we wrote here, right? If you duplicate this, right, and use it for find index, right? So what this does here is that what it's instead of finding the exact value, this finds the index for us. So what is the index of that thing, right? So v index, and then we get the index of what? The number 5. And what else? Then we have find last index also, which operates in almost the same pattern, which starts from the back, right? Starts from the back, right there. So I don't think people use them like that, but they are very useful. So it starts the searching from the back, just to make things a little bit faster, depending on what you're doing. It starts the searching from the back. That's the work of this one here. But they all do the same thing. The find finds the value, the find index finds the index, and the find last index find the last index, starting the search from the back. Then we have some array method that helps us to what? To transform, right? To transform a particular array, right, into whatever beautiful thing we want. So definitely the first one on that list is map, right? Then you can concat, right? You can join things together, right? You can join two arrays together, right? Concat. Also, we have the filter, right? We can use it to filter something. Then we have what? The slice, right? Or we have the splice, right? These are beautiful methods. And then we have reverse to reverse the array. Then we have sort to reverse them. So, but some of these things are dismutate. So we then have this to splice, right? To splice, right? To sort, I think. So these are new ones, right? These are new ones which are beautiful. Thank you. There we have reduce as well, right? We have reduce. Reduce is like the most reduce is like the most maybe tough one among all the array methods. It's quite complex. When you don't yet know it, like it can be very complex, right? But again, the idea is to it helps us to reduce something. So you can reduce an array of something into one thing, or reduce arrays into object, reduce anything, just reduce into one thing, basically. Reduce something into arrays of strings into a particular string. I mean, just do anything powerful. All right. Reduce are so very powerful that they can just reduce, take a chunk of array, chunk of stuff, and it can reduce it down into whatever you want to do. So there are different ways to use all of these, right? So map is that the current array, that we have, right? When we say maps helps us to just like we can return, say we want to return the double of what? The double or the square, right? The square of our current array, the square of our current array. So we can use what? Array.map, right? It also takes that same format of what? A callback function, right? It takes so we can write it in a very short callback, where you have what? Say we have value, right, for the first one, and you can say what? Value multiplied by what? 2, right? Multiply squared, right? I think this should work. It should work. The left hand side of an argument operation must be of type any. Man, it's not your business. I know what I'm doing. Thank you. All right. So by the time we look at the square there, right, it has what we have done the square, right? So that is what maps are very, and I think the reason why most persons use arrow function for the callback functions is because we can write what explicit, or like we can write explicit ones. We can write maybe implicit arrow functions, like the short ones, right, that don't have the curly braces and don't have the return, right? And you can quickly use it within the callback of any array. So that way, it's sort of like is a wave is the major reason why people use arrow functions more inside of the callback structures of array. Also, concat allow us to, like, you can concatenate. So we can concatenate what? We can concat the array and the squared version, right? You can join them together, right? And that's concat. And you can also save it in another In another new here, right? So that's beautiful with concat to join multiple arrays together. Also, we can use the filter, right? We can use filter to filter it into we can filter them into like give me the even or give me like the odd, right? And we can say give us like the odd ones, right? I mean, Copilot is smart that we want that. Give us the odd one. So it can it can always filter that for us. So filter is another very strong one as well. It's very strong, it's powerful, right? In that it helps you to filter. It looks through all of the array one by one and filter based on a particular criteria. If you look at this, what this is a criteria, right? And if you look at this is a criteria. How many of us remember what we the array the object dot what do we use again? Object dot group. How many of us remember the object dot group that we used in the last object dot group that we used? So we said there is object dot group, right? Group by, right? Is it, do we have group by here? We have group by here. It's undefined. Yeah, because it's not in Node.js yet. But object dot group by is was something that we talked about. Do we all remember the group by? It was something we talked about in the last object dot group by, right? It's very very handy, very powerful, right? It helps us to also filter, right? We did last week. Yeah, it's also very powerful in the sense that it can help us to filter just the way we filter this out, right? It can also help us to do the filtering right there. And what other ones are we supposed to talk about? We have the slice. So for the slice, I mean, the slice is just like you want to slice bread. So you slice based on a particular criteria. So when you're slicing, you provide the beginning, right? The start of the slice, right? And what the end. The end is always optional. So if you don't pass anything, I think if you don't pass anything, I think it duplicates, right? It helps us to duplicate right there. So it's just very, I think it's very beautiful in the sense that you can use array dot slice to create a new copy of an array, right? Very easily there. And then we have splice, right? What's the difference between splice and slice? What is the difference between splice and slice? What is the difference between splice and slice? So here, when you look at what the splice, right? The splice is what? Tell me what splice is doing. So it's an array method that helps us to what? To remove, just like slice is going to create a copy, right? Splice helps us to remove something, right? And instead of telling it where to end, because slice says that what? Well, I am going to create a copy, help you to slice that thing. All you just need to do to me is like tell me the beginning and the end. But splice is like, no, I'm a different kind of slice. You tell me the beginning and you tell me how many things you want me to remove. You tell me how many things you want me to remove. All right. And if you don't specify the last thing, I think if you don't specify, so if you don't specify, yeah, I think this delete count here is optional. So if you don't specify, I think what's the default value? I think you should have a default value. Removes element from an array and if necessary, insert new ones, right? New element in their place, returning the deleted one. Okay, so it has the power to also insert as it is removing, and it will then return the deleted element into a new array. I mean, it's very powerful. Most persons really underrate like splice, right? Because it's of the permanent behavior, right? Most persons don't really use it because of that permanent behavior, right? But I think that let's use our new array. Our new ARR is the combination of all the things that we have. So let's assume that we want to get our new array, which is the first 1 to 7 thing, right? And I think 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So you want to say what? Um, Splice start from like where? Start from zero, and is it zero now? And I think maybe get 7 things. So now, if we look at this, let's see what is returning. Yeah, we can get back what we had. And I think if we say start from, let's say we start from seven and get the remaining. Say start from seven and get the remaining. So again, you can use it in a different way. And I think the most interesting one is that you can add new things. I think we can add new things. Can we add new things this way, or I have to specify it? How does it take the new things that? Yeah, the new things should be array of numbers. The new things should be array of numbers. Let me check. Let me confirm. Let me confirm. All right. So let me just, I think I'm interested in this splice because I want to know how to use it. I've not been using it before. So it asks what the start, the delete count, and is it array? I think the last thing should just be array of items. And is it supposed to be an array? The last thing, is the last thing supposed to be an array? That's something I don't know, whether the last thing is supposed to be an array or let's look at this. So the delete count, and it also returns this. So it can take what? We can take the start, the delete count, and items, that is element to insert. So the element to insert, is it going to be an array or what? What is it going to be? That's what I don't know. Um, all right. So it is speechless. Um let's try it here. I think I want to know whether, okay, let me just check MDN. I'm gonna just check MDN to confirm the structure very well. MDN splice. So splice, right, gives us what? It depends, I guess, because we can use it for replacement and removal. Yeah, I think is the second thing that it can do, that I'm trying to understand what it can do. Okay, so it replaces element at, okay. I think it's just one thing that it can accept. So what it does here is that what it starts the splice from the fourth element, and it removes just one thing and it replaces it with one single thing. So so here it means that where's the one we have here before? So I said, like, if I splice and say remove something. Okay, I think I get the gist. No, let's see. Let's result. And I think the result is supposed to be let's see what the result is. The result is this, but what is the new array? Can you see that? Can you see the new array? So it literally took like the old new, the last thing I'm passing, because I think I saw it from the types here that the last thing can either be a single value or array of things. So it just replaces what it. I started like the splicing from the seventh item, right? And I took 7 things out, and it replaced those seven things with this whole new array with just this one thing here. So if I wanted to spread it, I think I can't spread it this way though. Can I spread it that way? Oh, I think I can spread it this way. Oh, spread it, spread it, spread it. Yeah, spread made it made it more beautiful. All right. So again, splice is very, very much good. So for those who don't like splice because it is permanent, now we have a new version that is not permanent, which is what? The new ARR dot to what? Dot to spliced. To spliced. This is not permanent. So that is the beauty. This is not permanent compared to like the former ones. They are not permanent to sort. So I think I want to bring this to the beginning, right? Ahead of this here. So let's do this here. Let's do this here. Let's do this here so so this accepts. So if we look at the signature of to spliced, right? To spliced is what? This copies. You can see now it copies. It copies. It doesn't delete anymore. It's the same thing, right? It does the same beautiful thing, but it copies, it doesn't remove anymore, it just copies. So the original array is left intact. So it copies an array and removes the element, and if necessary inserts new element in their place and returns what? The copied array. Returns the copied, right? Returns the copied. So it doesn't modify, but it goes ahead to return the copy. So exact the same thing that we did here, we can do that thing back again and say what? Start from 7, take out 7 items and spread back. Let's spread back array of 100, right? 99, 98, and 97, right? And so if we check our what result, right? The result is what? A copy of the new thing, just a copy of the new thing, copy of what? Of that new thing there, and it does not affect the original one. So the original one is what? Still intact, but we have a new copy, right? We have a new copy, and mind you, the new copy is totally new entirely. So again, these two splices, they're just a beautiful modification of what the array group or the array committee is doing, right? In the beautiful things that they are able to what they are able to do. All right. So I think one final thing I should talk about, because I'm getting tired already. I didn't plan to stay this long. So we can do we have other ones, right? We have other methods like which one is that again? We have reverse, right, which is just to reverse the whole array. Then we have sort, which helps us to what? To sort the array. And I think another thing we should also know with sort is that, let's just try the sort on before this one. I don't like this one. I modify something, so let's just comment this out. So we can just comment this out and we can sort what? We can sort the what? I think they are sorted. Are they sorted? Okay, they are not sorted. So let's try to sort the new array, right? We can do the reverse there. Okay. So let's try to say new array, right? And how do you sort? People don't really know how to sort. Most persons struggle with sorting. So what sorting does is, or what sorting expects is that sorting says that, oh, you pass me what? The first two things in that array, right? The first two things, and say what? First and second, right? If you pass me first and second, and I'm just going to compare them, right? I'm just going to compare the first and second, right? And I'm going to do what? First what? Maybe first minus what? Second, right? And using that approach, it will be doing what? It will be doing first minus second, and then it will be able to detect like which one is the biggest one or which one is the bigger one, right? And it's able to just adjust it based on that, and then we can have what a new sorting, right? You can see that what we have a new what sorted what version of our array. So I mean, sorting is to sort is very very beautiful. And also you see some other persons use like maybe greater than, or they use like less than as well. It also works, right? It also works, right? But the idea again is that most times you just want to use like the negative, right? The negative thing. Then if you want to sort in the descending, right? I think this is ascending. So if you want to sort in the descending, all you want to do is what you want to do second, right? You want to do second minus what first, second minus first, second minus first. So you can see that this sorts in the descending format there. But now the problem again here is that what if we check it with this now, it has affected our results. Can anybody see that? This array.sort has mutated our new array. So it has affected this one here that we are working with. So that is why we now have what? We have a new sorting approach that is not what? That does not mutate, right? Which is what? I think to sort. To sorted, right? To sorted, right? It doesn't mutate, right? It helps us to keep the original copy, and then you can do whatever you want to. So there are what? There are better ways, right? With the to sorted, to splice. I think they are just how many of them do we have again now? Which is what? Reversed, reversed dot two. So we have to reversed, right? To sorted, to spliced, right? So they are just three, right? So to reversed, to sorted, and to splice. I mean, they are very, very handy. To sorted and to reversed. So that is that with that, and we just want to try reduce, just a little bit of reduce, right? Reduce, like what I said earlier with reduce, that reduce takes what? It helps us to reduce something, right? It also takes a callback, but this time around the shape and the structure of the callback is different, right? In the sense that you can pass in an initial value, right? Say you want to say the initial value is 0, and you want to pass what? A callback function here. So here we can say uh you can call it there's a common name they call them though. What's the common name they call it again now? You can call it the previous value, the current value, right? You can call it the previous value or the current value. So here is the structure of the reduce here. So you have what? The previous value. Sorry about that. My voice is fading away. So you can have the previous value, the current value, or the current index. That's one structure there. And we also have another structure where you have just the previous value alone and the current value alone. And also we can have another one that has what? The initial value. Initial value. So let's just write one that calculates the sum total of this reversed, right? So we can say what? Prev, right, and core, right, which is representing the previous and the current, and you want to return what? The sum total of what? The previous plus what? Plus core, right? And then when you check this now, this is supposed to give us what? One final sum value. Must we state the initial value? No. If we don't pass the initial value, it used the first item as the initial value. So it used the first value of prev as the initial value. So in this case, you can see that we're not passing the initial value and it's still working fine. So the rule says that here it calls what? What's the rule again? There should be a rule off the top that says that. So it says that the initial value, if initial value is specified, it used the initial value to start the accumulation. So you can see the first call to the callback function provides this value as an argument to the array. So I'm looking for a particular one that does not have, there should be a particular explanation that doesn't use that. So I think a function, let's see. Let's check MDN. I think what they have here does not explain it very well the way I want it. But if we check MDN would have told us that if MDN MDN, which one are we looking for again? Reduce, right? We're looking for the reduce. So MDN says that it expects what? It expects something called an accumulator, right? The current value and the what? The current index. Now, the idea here is that what? The value resulting from the previous call of the callback function on the first call, its value is initial value. All right. So you can see here that what it will be what the initial value. Okay, and I think for the current value, so the value of the current element on the first call, its value is array of what 0. I think okay, this is it uses the current value. I think this is it uses the current value. I think my bad. I thought it was the previous I used, but you got the answer there, right? Abdul. So it uses what the current value has the initial as the first value of what of your value if you don't specify that there. So they are very handy, right? They are very handy, very powerful, right? Again, we have new ARR and we can reduce right. You can reduce and what instead of going from left, right, which is the default behavior, you go from the right. Now the interesting thing is what you can name the parameters as you wish. So we can say that what you can see accumulator comma the current value, right? And then we can say what we have the ACC plus what the current value, and this works, right? Why is TypeScript cannot be applied on types number? So I have to type this thing. That's the advantage of TypeScript there. Very beautiful in what it does there. And the last one is also very new, right? That we don't really use an array method that is called width. So an array method that is called width. So array tree dot width. What does this do? Oh, so we have copy within. Do we have array copy within? Oh, that's interesting. I never knew that there is a method called array dot copy within. Okay, I didn't thought we have other ones like flat and flat map. So if you want to know more about flat and flat map, I think I wrote an article about flat and flat map sometimes back, right? Sometimes back. I think I wrote something about array.flat. Not sure whether it's still here. Yeah, array.flat and array.flat map. So array.flat, they provide us a mechanism to flatten something, right? Right, it's just a mechanism to flatten something, and it has they had a problem in picking the name. I think the problem was they wanted to use flatten before they concluded to use flat, and I think they have flat and flat map, I think. Yeah, so those two things. So the work of flat map is that it will flatten it and it will allow you to map instantly. So when you want to know more about it, right, you could just come here, right, and read about it there. I think I wrote this. Is there a date here? I wrote this December 20. That's 2018. How many years is 2018 from now? That's when 2024. That's like 6 years ago. Whoa, that's a long time. It's a pretty long time. I mean, we've been hustling and doing all these interesting things here for a long period of time. I mean, it's just beautiful that I could just revert back to. Is that up to six? Is this? Are we in 2024? I'm not even sure we're in 2024. I need to confirm the year that we are in. Are we in 2024? Oh my god. It is so amazing how time moves. Time moves so fast. So the flat and the flat map is also right there. They are very powerful. They are very powerful and they are also very handy. Very powerful, very handy. They help us to get a lot of things done. All right. And so the final thing, one of the final thing, I think I want to talk about array.width because width is so we have array.keys now. That's interesting. I didn't know that there was array.keys. When was this released? I know we had array.join, right? Array.join, right? Then includes to check if something is included. There are a lot of them. There are a lot of methods there that they are very beautiful, right? To feel, and then the truthy ones. So let me I think I just want to note them down as I come across them. I want to talk about the array.width. I don't think it's in Node.js as well, right? So I've also seen flat and what flat, comma flat map, and which other one did I see? We have copy within. This copy within is pretty much new, right? Copy within. So there are array methods. So it helps us to copy is a copy method of array instance, shallow copy parts of the array to another location in the same array and returns this array without modifying the length. Okay, it returns the array without modifying the length. That's interesting. It returns this array without modifying the length. So copies to index 1 all the elements from. Okay, I mean, this is very funny. I don't know why somebody might use this though. This is a very interesting thing. The copy is just still within the same thing. So this copy within just changes the structure. It changes the structure of the array internally. It changes the structure of the array internally. Right. I mean, it's beautiful. Again, like I said, there are a lot of things there. There are a lot of things there that you just need to know, right? So we have the copy within field, copy within. Then we have includes, and we also have the ones that they check, which is array.sum and array.every. It helps us to check. Which other ones do we have? Includes. Okay, we've talked about includes. The entries and keys. I don't know when they added array.entries and keys. So we have array.keys and entries. I think the major thing is it just turns the value of an array into an iterator, so which allow us to do different magic with it there. So if there is entries, would they have dot values as well? Did they have dot values? So they also have values. Oh my god. Wow. It's beautiful. So it's very, very beautiful. So the last one I want to talk about before I bring the whole stream to a close is the width. The width is a very new one as well. Very new as well. The width is a very new one. So what does width does? Now, width method on array instance is for copying is the copying version of using the bracket notation, right? To change the value of a given index. It returns a new array with the element of the given index. So now we have array instance and you pass it width and you pass it index and you pass it a value right there. So they have, let's see the examples here. So here we are passing it again, index of what? Index of 2, and we are passing it the value of 6. So it means that number one, it is putting what? 6 inside of what? Inside of what? This particular index. It is putting the value of 6 inside of what? The index of 2, right there. And the thing is what? It doesn't mutate the original one, right? It doesn't mutate the original one. It just returns a copy. Now, how many of you are, if you have written like a to-do, how many of you have written like a to-do before? If you're reading like a to-do app in React, or a to-do app in maybe like pure vanilla JavaScript, sometimes you want to update something. How many of you have an idea of the to-do and you want to update, right? And most of the time, what we do is like you do an array.find, right? You find that thing and you kind of like, update it and you put it back inside, right? That's some most of the time what you kind of like do, right? But now, you have, once you have the idea of that thing, you can just use the array dot width, right? Because all you just need to pass is what? You just need to pass it the index. And most of the time we know the index of the to do. So you do the array dot width, the idea of the to do, boom, and you pass it what? The new structure of the to do, right? Whether it's an object or the string, and you are able to update it faster than the way we usually do it before, which is, so the array dot width is like the icing on the cake of the array method. It's pretty much new and it solves a lot of problem. And I think that it's, and because it doesn't mutate, makes it very good as well, right? It doesn't change the original thing. So you have power, because again, mutation is like a very expensive operation. So you have like a very beautiful API with the array dot width there. It is beautiful, it is powerful, and we can always use that too. So to just drive what I was trying to explain earlier, so let's assume, right, that I have what? I have I have to do's. Let's assume I have to do's in this format, which looks like an array, and we have something that looks like this. So let's just assume we have this to do here. So we have do something here, right? And we have this field up for us, right? So if we want to update the second to do, so we just pass it what? The ID of that thing, which is what? The second one, and we just send a new structure. And we can now say what? It's still what? The ID of what? ID of 2, right? ID of 2. But now the title is what? What is the title? The title is what? Do something else, updated, right? And we are able to now say completed is what? False, right? Because we just updated this, right? And I think that this is something similar to what array.width should be doing. Why is TypeScript arguing? Why is TypeScript? So here, TypeScript, sorry. It's supposed to be to do's, right? To do's.width. And when you hover on everything again, we now have what? When you hover on everything, or let's just say result and results, and we can now see what result. So now, if you look at the structure very carefully, okay, because this is supposed to be what? One, right? It is the one thing that we wanted to update here. So if you look at the structure again here, you see that what? You see the structure, it has updated what? This one here. And I don't have to do anything special before it updated. So you can see the beautiful power of the array dot what? Array dot width, right? In the sense that it is powerful and it allows us to, to just do some magical stuff there. I think this is where I'm going to be like drawing the curtains tonight, right? It's been like a beautiful 1 hour, 20 minutes or 30 minutes thereabout, just trying to look at arrays and then look at array methods, just to play around with them, what they are able to do, the power and all, and to just focus and highlight on all the new APIs, right? The new array methods that we have, most especially the four major ones, which is what? To sorted, to spliced, and to reversed, right? Those three ones there, that's very powerful. And also array.at and array.width really gives us a lot of power right there. So thank you again for those who are still with me, who are able to like stay to the end with me. It's always a pleasure to to have you here. Thanks one more time. And I think yeah, I think I will be seeing you tomorrow one more time, and we'll be doing Next.js and React, and hopefully. Please do have a wonderful night rest, and bye for now.